me again. Thank you for joining me in the dark den once more. Yes, I am still here. Yes, I am filming this immediately after the previous video, so that's why I'm still down here. It's still 27 degrees, actually it's probably not, about 25 degrees outside, but definitely 27 degrees plus in the studio. It's baking up there, so I am down here looking at one of my childhood White Dwarfs, 199 from July 1996, so let's take a look. Okay, let us do this thing. Any prizes for guessing what's released in this edition? No, it's this guy, Abaddon. He probably is Abaddon, right? He's Abaddon. I know it's a biblical name. It's not a terrible pun, but it is also a terrible pun. Here we go. Here is our White Dwarf staff for this month. Jake Thornton in the editor's seat. A.D. Wood, the production editor, Stephen Astasoff, Gavin Thorpe, Ian Pickstock, and Thomas Pirinen. There we go. And we've got some Orlox versus Cawdor. Goliath. What am I talking about? Goliath versus Cawdor up here. And Blood Axe Commandos trying to capture a Valhallan Ice Warrior, Lehman Russ, down the bottom. Now, what is in this issue? Lots of good stuff. Here is Brian Nelson announcing some of his newest. He's only been in the studio for about a month, maybe 6 weeks at this point, and here's some of his new output. Brian Nelson, of course, responsible for this design of Orc Biggins that then led to what I call the Gorillox, the next stage where they became that very sort of pronounced overbite, big muscular jaws, hanging down long arms. Not a look that I like. These really put me off collecting greenskins. I preferred the earlier, more varied, more spindly, more kind of gangrel looking orcs from the third, and a little bit into the fourth, although the fourth were a bit more kind of cartoon. I definitely preferred the earlier orcs, but you know, changing styles and designs, and Kev Adams had left, so they needed somebody else to do the orcs, and it looks like Brian Nelson was the man to do the orcs. Here we have some lovely Chaos Warrior conversions, Gribbly Chaos Warrior conversions, based on the new Chaos figures that were coming out at this time with the newest Codex Chaos, which was the first, even though this is 96, so we're, what are we, 7 years on, maybe, from the release of the second Realms of Chaos book. I think maybe it was the first one was 1989. Anyway, whatever. We're some years on from the release of the Realms of Chaos, and this is codifying, as a codex does, Chaos for the 40k world, because it's now something slightly different. And this very much streamlines, takes some elements from Realm of Chaos, but streamlines all of the weird and wonderful and wacky roleplay focused stuff, and says, okay, but what do we need on a battlefield? How can we make this easier for players to engage with and field an army? And there's of course the discussion of the four main gods and the legions that follow them, but also the discussion of general Chaos Space Marines who don't really subscribe to any one particular Chaos god. Mike McVeigh here is discussing what makes a good Golden Demon entry, so he's looking at some past entries and kind of comparing a first and second place and saying why they decided to go with the first and with the second, which is is interesting to see a judge's eye view. I obviously don't necessarily agree with any of his judgments. Like, I really like the dark, somber tones of these Space Wolf Scouts, as opposed to the kind of standard Goblin Green. Even though this arm scheme is unusual, it's not that bright and colourful, but I think the black edged bases make it look grimmer, darker, Not that I like grim dark, but I actually quite like the dark visage of these guys. But it wasn't the studio style at the time. And although they're not judging based on the studio style, the studio paints for a certain way for a certain reason, and that's kind of what they're looking for here. So yeah, interesting to see Mike McVeigh's judge's eye take on these models. Fred Marcarini is a very excellent dioramist and photographer, and here are his dioramas. They're actually photo setups. It's obviously quite different and more involved in terms of lighting than the studio ones that you'll find on the back and that we discussed in the last video. Very, very moody, very atmospheric. I really loved this one. This one made a big impression on me as a kid, as a first reader of this magazine. I've now got this figure with the lantern just because I really like it in this setting and I want him as my dungeoneering character. But yes, you can see that there's a lot going on here, but these are photo setups really rather than dioramas. They are individual models who've been placed in this setting, lit, photographed for the sake of the photograph. They don't exist as displays as far as I'm aware, and then broken down again. So very much the way that White Dwarf photos first were when they started having photos of miniatures set up with the bases disguised with flocks to show like scenes rather than games. He's also converted these amazing Chaos Space Marines, and I remember spending ages looking through and going through and trying to identify all of the various bits, like the kind of Chimera heads in here and the Jabberwock head here and the Bloodletter's heads and the various weapons and things that have been used, trying to identify all of the bits. I only really recently realised, and I guess maybe I didn't read it very thoroughly as a kid, I was too busy looking at the pictures, that these are not his painting, that he got a Golden Demon winner to paint these for him because he thought that his painting wouldn't be up to the level of conversions, but they are glorious, absolutely stunning things, and really nice to see stuff that's so hacked around, goes so far into the back catalogue. Does a bit of scratch building in here with this beast, and just create something that's really different. When you contrast that to these conversions here, the sort of Night Lords conversions that very much consist of, you know, lopping a limb off and putting some tentacles in or swapping a hand with something else. This is involved, you know, conversion on a whole different level, and it's really lovely to see it in the magazine. Here's some cardstock that's not here. We'll find out what these are in a minute. A Space Hulk campaign, The Bringer of Sorrows, a bunch of Space Marines en route to a mission, find a Hulk dropping out of warp space, and have to decide whether they're going to take it on or whether they are going to rush onto their mission. So they're against a time limit, and this is a linked series there. The availability of the squads declines as you go on, and then the outcome is based mostly on how many people you've got left, but also sort of how long you took to cleanse the Hulk. Andy Chambers here talking about setting up his own 40k campaign. Sounds very much like he was playing games with two other guys and said, hey, why don't we run a campaign? And they were like, okay, but only if you do it. And he then basically took the games that they had played, and rather than saying, okay, well, next we're going to play this, they just played a game, and then he retrospectively back wrote it into the campaign, with the outcome and the reason for the battle. And here's his, well, actually not his map, this is his map, but this is a colorized version of his campaign map. But it sounds quite fun. It sounds like he's getting some good stories out of it, which is what it's all about really, isn't it? Here's some more cardstock. These These ones here I can recognise. This is where the cats from the Space Hulk campaign, the automated little cat robots, not really cats, the little information finding robots that are in the Space Hulk campaign came from. Here we have a discussion on card buildings and modelling with card buildings and putting card buildings on your tabletop and how to make them not look so much like card buildings, because now of course Games Workshop have put out quite a lot at this time of card buildings in one form or another, and here's how very basically you can put a base, put some flock around it, add some thickness to the walls, add some crenellations, and suddenly your little cardboard buildings don't look quite so cardboard and rough. They can look quite nice on your tabletop, and so they can. Adrian Wood here, AD Wood, as apparently he liked to be known. I'm quite sure why Adrian was the name that White Dwarf decided to use, maybe as a nom de plume, because of course the people reading this weren't really his friend, even though we all thought, oh yeah, we're Adrian's mates. We weren't really, we didn't have a clue who we were just reading it. But here he is discussing his cult of speed with various buggies and scorchers and war tracks and everything else that the orcs have to drive around and go daka 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 with. Dawn of the Restless Dead 2, you remember these characters popped up in the previous video, or previous edition I should say. Well, now we're going to have a fight. So here's the army list for the Duke of Quenelles, the Dead of Quenelles, and the Wood Elves who are trying to stop them from plundering the Barrow Mounds. Here we discuss Warhammer Quest, obviously. Warhammer Quest heroes, not in Warhammer Quest, converting Warhammer Quest heroes for use in your Warhammer armies. So you can have your questing hero leading a unit or leading your army, and ways to successfully do that. Stats that are important on the battlefield rather than stats that are important in a dungeon. And here's our feature article, of course. Abaddon, the War Master of Chaos, his history. Nice painting, him and his Terminator bodyguard, and the second most stupid Juggernautal core model. Have they ever produced a good Juggernautal core model? The initial ones that were like warthogs melded with tanks looked really dumb. These ones look really dumb. I mean, they're not as stupid as the Bone Crushers. Is that what the little kind of Johnny Five wheelie robots were called? But they're pretty dumb, aren't they? They're pretty stupid looking things. Glade Riders. We saw them a little bit in Mike McVeigh's diorama in the last issue, but now they are out alongside the Warhawk Riders. Karloff Valois, the B-movie vampire type villain for Necromunda. But he's got quite a cool backstory. Not quite sure why he's got a bat on his head, but I guess that ties in with his backstory somehow. Yes, he's quite... Obviously this is a Mark Gibbons painting, you can tell, can't you? Mike McVeigh discussing more horse markings. We've talked previously about painting horses. This is more specifics about types of markings, colours for hooves and manes compared to the body of the horse, that kind of thing. Discussion of painting a dapple grey horse, as he's done for the Glade Riders. I did try this for my Wood Elf General back when this issue came out, and my horse did not look dapple grey. It looked like a grey horse that had fried eggs dotted all over it. I think I made some poor colour choices, but his looks very nice. Although I have to say that from that to that, it's a bit of a jump. It's one of those articles where you're like, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 10. Where the other steps gone? Oh yeah, and then we'll just do the finished model. Right, okay, fine. Yeah, so I said we were going to fight a battle, and so we are. Here are the Wood Elves on a fairly sizable force, including the Forest Dragon and the Eagles and the Glade Riders, and lots of bowmen and war dancers and things. But we are fighting the Skaven, the Gracier Thanquol, rather than the Dead of Quenelles in this battle report. I won't spoil it for you. It's quite an interesting. It's quite an interesting report. It's not my favourite White Dwarf Wood Elf battle. That one was way back in issue 190. Well, not way back. 190 was only like 9 issues ago. Not even a year ago. Yeah, that one, because it had the older Wood Elves. And well, these ones are nice. I do prefer the older Wood Elf models. Catalogue pages. What have we got? An ore buggy. Squig catapult. That stupid, dumb Juggernaut of Core model. Chaos Space Marines, of course, and Abaddon. Chaos Space Marines. The old plastic Khorne Berserkers and Nurgle Plague Marines. Still nice plastics, I still like these. Undead transfers, Glade Riders, Warhawk Riders, Wood Elf transfers, Plague Zombies, Weirds, and then let's zoom in on our final image of the Dwarves taking on the Undead, including the Flying Cabbage, the big zombie dragon that you never saw really very clearly. I feel like in White Dwarf, I feel like this was a model that I wanted to see a lot more of, and it kind of didn't get a feature. You kind of got glimpses of angles of it here, there and everywhere, but never really got to see what the whole thing looked like up close, which is odd because lots of dragons of this era you did get a really good look at, but not this one. Classic old skeleton chariot here, still the best plastics ever produced, and the dwarves with their myriad of war machinery and gyrocopter and stuff. So there we are. That is as was White Dwarf 199, July 1996. Join me next week for a look at something else. Take care.